On the afternoon of Saturday, October 25th, 2025, I ventured to the Everett Railroad to chase their 2:30 excursion to Martinsburg, PA, with the star of the show, Everett 26011, an ALCO 1920 product with an ALCO Five Chime appropriate, pulling a Lehigh, New England Elliott Coach 100, EB Coaches 205 Roaring Springs Dining Car, 1183 9970 23 baggage car, 1184 24 24 37, and bringing up the rear EV Lehigh Valley SW900M 126 push to Roaring Springs. It proved out to be a great adventure. Sit back and enjoy. Here we see the train leaving the station Hollidaysburg video. At the end of the video, a proper introduction to all the equipment will be seen. Almost 20 minutes later, we see the train passing Monastery Rd, Hollidaysburg, PA, and our first drone clip. Note the cool Western Colin Hayes mechanical bell. The next two videos were taken by my friend Tom while I drove. First is a brief pacing for the trees on State Road 2007 Puttstown. Second video was taken at PI Highway 36 across the McKee, PA. Another top Western Colin Hayes mechanical. 10 minutes later at Main Street, Roaring Springs, PA, we see the 1906 Pennsylvania Railroad Station and a nice Pennsylvania Railroad cabin car caboose up here from Clarence Lake. At left is a non-functioning semaphore signal. The station was listed as part of the National Historic Places as part of the Roaring State Historic District on March 3rd, 1995. After the train passes here, Lehigh Valley EV 1361 coupled from the train and returned light to Hollidaysburg. She is needed to push the train up to Roaring Springs because 11 is too weak to pull the train by herself. Turn up your speakers for that stack talk. Minutes later, we see the train at Frederick Rd Martinsburg, PA, with the cargo grain elevator at right. The train is nearing the end of the line.
To where they turn, by the way? All right, thank you. All right, thank you.
Almost 10 minutes later at Central Ward, Martin's Junction, PA, we see 11 turning on the Y for the return trip to Hollidaysburg, PA. She is then seen backing into the train and idling for several minutes.
You getting out?
Yeah.
Just before 4 p.m., 11 gets underway for Hollidaysburg, PA. Over 20 minutes later, we see the train passing the 1906 Rolling State PA station at a platform. The semaphore can be seen at right.
you, sir?
I'm going to sit out here on it.
I know. It looks like you're in the time of your life. It's a beautiful day today.
Ten minutes later, we see the train Vicksburg, PA, Brooks Boulevard. At River Road, Hollidaysburg, we see the train for the final time crossing the River Road on the Frankstown branch of the Juniata River, a 46 tribute of the larger one of Fort's Juniata River, which flows into the Susquehanna River at Duncannon. Now for a full history of the equipment. 11 was one of 59 260 moguls built for ALCO for the Cuban sugar rush of the early 1920s. However, Cuba's economy proved unstable, and only 49 were exported and 19 remained stranded in the USA. 11 and her 18 surviving sisters remained in storage where ALCO looked for domestic buyers. The locomotive was originally built to run on oil, but was soon converted to coal firing. She was sold in March 2020 to the Nantucket Pier Railroad, Port NA, Nantucket Pier, Rhode Island. She was in service until 1937 in favor of a Plymouth Locomotive gasoline switcher. 11 was then sold to the Baffin-Harrisburg Railroad, B&H, in New York State, the same Baffin-Harrisburg whose ALCO fleet I've done many times. They ran her until 1959 when the railroad adopted dieselization. Instead of scrapping the obsolete locomotive, the B&H kept her in the roundhouse until a bargain found. In July 1955, she was purchased by a preservationist named Stanley A. Gorman for a new museum in Sandy Point, New York, to be called Rail City. There, she hauled tourist trains on a 1-mile circular line until the mid-1970s, when declining patron forced her closure. In 1977, she was repurposed by the Navy for restoration, but abandoned in 1901. In 1901, she was then sold to the Middletown and New Jersey route, M&J, whose president, Pierre Razin, hoped to restore. He passed away in 2004, and she was never restored. Ownership of number 11 ended up with James Wright, who had done business at M&J. 2 years later, in 2006, the Everett Railroad president, April Maples, purchased 11 with the desire to run his own steam program. 11 was sent to the Western Marathon WCR workshop in Rigney, West Virginia, where the WMSR began the locomotive's restoration under contract. Crews at WMSR performed multiple tests on 11. The frame was reconditioned, the running gear rebuilt, and some part of the boiler replaced. In March 2005, 11 was moved to the Everett Railroad shop in Claysburg, PA, where the remainder of her restoration took place, which involved additional replacement parts before installed for the boiler and running gear. In August, number 11 went hydraulic tests and a test fire, both of which were deemed successful. Following reassembly, the locomotive hauled her first train on the railroad in October 2015. In 2022, 11 was converted to used oil due to difficulties in securing coal and the desire to cut down the amount of smoke she generated. This was returned to number 11's original configuration as she was converted to coal-fired shuttle construction. On May 6, 2023, 11 held a fundraiser effort to benefit the restoration of Pennsylvania Road 1361, aka the K4, by the Railroad's Memorial Museum of Altoona, Pennsylvania. Lehigh, New England Coach 100. She is the only surviving passenger equipment from the L&E, built September 1925 by the American Car and Foundry and its works in Wilmington, Delaware, and was the only known example of passenger car from the Andesite region line. She was in service for 36 years until the railroad ended service on October 31st, 1961. She then became a restaurant annex for the next 30 years until a trolley broker, Ed Medica, bought her in 1993. He stored it indoors in a former freight car repair shop. She was then stored indoors for those 3 years until the Everett Railroad discovered her. She was purchased by the Everett for restoration and then restored in September 2024. Everett Road 205 Roar Springs, built 1920 by the Pullman Company of Chicago, Illinois, one of 54 standard 84-seat coaches for the Fort Worth and Denver Railroad, a subsidiary of the Chicago, Burlington Road, CBQ, and FWD, respectively. In 1969, she was sold to the Trinity Valley Railroad Club and then Fillmore Western 98. Sold to Everett Railroad in 2021 and re-entered service in 2025. EV Coach 1183 was built in 1927 by the Bethlehem Shipbuilding Corporation's Harlan plant, Wilmington, Delaware, for the Central Rd New Jersey C&J. As built, the car had capacity for 72 people was finished with a mahogany interior. In 1932, it was reconfigured with 54 reclining seats and a short proto section and assigned to the C&J's long-distance trains. In 1967, the car was refitted with standard walkover seats and used in commuter service until it was retired and sold in 1985 by New Jersey Transit, or NGT, after almost 6 decades of service. Car 113 was acquired by the Everett Railroad from the Belvedere and Delaware in 2006. Restoration was completed in 2023. EV Coach 997 was built in 1923 by the American Car and Foundry Company. She was one of 260 standard Clark Street Road coaches acquired by the Central New Jersey C&J between the years 1922 and 1927. The Everett Railroad acquired the 997 in 2009. Restoration began in 2019 and required over 4,000 man hours and 2 years to complete. EV Combi 23 was built in 1925 by the Press Steel Car Company of Pittsburgh, PA for the Bestburn Lake Erie Railroad (BLE). Utilized as passenger service by the Bestburn until the 1950s, she was converted into a diner for business train service and renumbered 820. Donated to in 1964 and acquired from the Pennsylvania Railroad Trolley Museum in 2012, the car was returned to service in 2015. Coach 1194. The Everett Railroad owns 6 former Central Railroad New Jersey C&J 78-seat commuter coaches. Coach 1194, built in 1927 by Bethlehem Shipbuilding, is one of the 6. Acquired from the Ohio Central OHCR in 2008, she underwent a complete restoration and returned to service in fall 2018. Coach 2537. The backbone of our fleet are two former Delaware Rocco and Western DOW multi-ute MU cars. Built by Pullman in 1920-1930, the 84 far seats served the DLW successors in commuter service until the 1980s. Upon retirement, our cars were purchased by the Horseshoe Curve chapter of the National Rail Historic Society, NRHS, demotorized and refurbished for use on tourist trains. Numbered 103, 104, 105, respectively. The cars served the NRHS for over 30 years before being acquired by the Everett Railroad in early 2018. Following Everett Railroad tradition, these cars will return to their original deal numbers as time allows. LV, or Electric Motor Division, SW900 126. 126 was originally built for Lehigh Valley LV by EMD in May of 1938 as an NW1. She was rebuilt by EMD in 1956 as an SW900M, and she continued to work for the Lehigh Valley until that railroad was absorbed by Conrail, CR, in 1976. The 126 were renumbered by Conrail in 8653 and was rebuilt again around 1980. Conrail sold 8653 in the 1980s. She worked for several coal companies around central and western Pennsylvania, ending up at Rosebud's Mine Junction, Kiski Junction around KGR in Schenectady, PA. SG Junction restored the locomotive to her original Lehigh Valley number and paint scheme. She continued to haul tourists until that railroad shut down in 2017. The Everett Railroad acquired 126 in 2021. She entered service in early 22.
Here we see at the Duncansville shop for Everett, we see EVB 390 8524 and GP16 1712 and H28. EVG or General Dash 839B 8524 is XFMX or Farmers Mutual Creamery Company 8524, XMVPX or Motive Power Resource 8524, HMCR Huntsville and Madison County Railroad Authority 8524, SNC or Saratoga North Creek 8524, SRG or San Luis Rio Grande Ride 8524, RLC or Railway Equipment 8524, LMX or G Rail Service 8524, built in November 1987. And then EVGP 1617 is XBDVAR or Belvedere and Delaware 1712. RJCR RJ Carmen 1712, named after Richard J. Carmen, July 20th, 1955, August 23rd, 2013. XCSX 1712, Clinchfield to CRGP 7911. Rebuild date to GP 16 unknown date or location. Original build date December 1950. And then X EV EMD 16 1828 is XRG Armin 828, Seaboard or Seaboard System 1828, XCSX 1828, SC or Seaboard Coastline GB 164782, SA or Seaboard Airline GP 7 1798. Rebuild date or location unknown. Original build date September 1952. Here's the 1871 Hollidaysburg train station, which is used by the Everett Railroad. And thus concluded a great day on the Everett Railroad. Special thanks to the Everett Railroad for putting on a good show, and my friend Tom for filming and going along. Thanks for watching.